The message landed before sunrise, sharp as glass. Hazel, after careful consideration, we're moving the database division in a new direction. Your role is eliminated, effective immediately. The tech industry needs fresh perspectives. HR will reach out Monday. I blinked at the screen, checked the timestamp, 7:13 a.m., Saturday, and read it again, then again, like repetition might turn it into a prank. 20 years of midnight rollouts, holiday fixes, and I'll be there in 10 emergencies, reduced to 4 sentences and a digital signature. A. Patterson. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Habit took the wheel before humiliation did. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Patterson. I'll await HR's instructions. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and stared out at the Portland morning, all river mist and quiet roofs. My house, 15 years still on the mortgage, felt suddenly too large, too fragile. I'm Hazel Winters, 59, a single mom who shepherded a daughter through college by holding the guts of Vanguard Systems together in ways no one saw. 4 CEOs, 6 office moves, 2 times we ripped the product line to the studs and rebuilt it. And now, obsolete, replaceable, outdated. The phone buzzed again. Please return all company materials by Tuesday. Badges, laptop, and any documentation related to Hermes. The transition team will take over your accounts. Hermes. The crown jewel. The database security system that paid for everybody's kombucha, wall murals, and those soundproof focus pods. The thing I had stitched into existence with 1,000 tiny solutions nobody bothered to write down except me, in spiral notebooks smudged with coffee. The phrase transition team almost made me laugh, as if what I did could be handed off like a locker combo. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because what happens next is the kind of twist real life shouldn't have, but always does. I stepped away from the counter and let memory spool out. 2001, Vanguard was still crammed into a drafty warehouse downtown. Robert Patterson, Alexander's father, interviewed me in a chair with a missing wheel. I had no CS degree, only an admin job at a law firm and a habit of building little databases, because the firm couldn't afford the real ones. Robert looked at the tools I'd hacked together and smiled like he'd found a map through a forest. You've got the best degree there is, he'd said. Results. Under Robert, I became the person you called when the old box refused to talk to the new one. I spoke fluent legacy and passable cutting edge. I could make 2 systems designed to hate each other cooperate long enough to ship 14,000 orders in a storm. When Hermes came along, our revolution in secure data, I wasn't on the flashy slide decks. I was the quiet connector, the one who noticed where the blueprint didn't match the building and fixed it by morning. In the office, the running joke was Ask Hazel. At home, it was just me and Jenna, coloring books overtaken by network diagrams. When she got the flu, I patched servers from the kitchen table with a thermometer tucked behind her ear. When she wore a cardboard mortarboard at 5th grade graduation, I sat in the back row answering a Slack ping under my coat. We were a team. My kid and I and Vanguard under Robert made room for that. I paid that kindness back with loyalty you could set your watch by. Then Robert retired. Alexander arrived with TED Talk energy and a PowerPoint army. He said words like disruption and velocity and legacy drag, while the folks who'd poured their bones into this place learned to stop raising their hands. I went to the classes, learned the new framework, wrote glue code on weekends to make his new project system talk to our old databases. If the company was turning, I would help it turn without throwing the passengers. Still, the signs were there, the ones you don't want to read. My name quietly removed from strategy invites. My team redistributed to people with job titles longer than their resumes. My desk, relocated. Realignment, they called it. I told myself it was a growth pain, not a prelude. Monday, I drove to HQ one last time. Tony at the gate, 15 years of good mornings, wouldn't meet my eyes as he slid me a visitor badge. "I'm sorry, Miss Winters," he murmured. "They already shut off your credentials." "Not your fault," I said, and meant it. HR was antiseptic and perfumed. Diane from People Ops slid envelopes across the table like she was dealing cards in a casino where the house always wins. 2 months' pay. Benefits until the end of the quarter. A pen that didn't work on the first try. Is Alexander available? I asked. He's in meetings, she said, and looked down like the word coward might be printed on the table. I packed my box under the watch of a security contractor who'd never seen me reroute a service at 3 a.m. to save a client's quarter. Into the box went a plant with more resilience than I felt, a mug Jenna painted in 2nd grade, and a photo of her, gap-toothed, triumphant in a paper cap. That's when Garrett Davis, the new CTO, filled my doorway holding a tablet like a shield. Hazel, he said, smile polished. Before you go, quick verification on Hermes integration protocols. Standard documentation completion. I arched an eyebrow. Now you want my input? Just covering bases for the annual security update. There are gaps? He glanced at his tablet as if an answer might load. Gaps happen, I said, tucking the photo into bubble wrap, especially when you fire the person who knows where the gaps are. He chuckled, that half-pity, half-dismiss laugh people use on anyone over 50. Let's not get dramatic. You didn't build Hermes. You supported it. The temperature in the room shifted. Years of 2 a.m. heroics, of elegant fixes that let the real developers present smooth demos, flickered through me like heat lightning. Check the repo logs, I said, mild as tea. My name's on more than half the custom bridges keeping 2 generations of your stack from divorcing. The smile cracked. He leaned in. Where is the override sequence documented when the authentication server rejects the certificate refresh? Ah, there it was. The little unfix they had unknowingly designed into the big fix. Every year, when the security certificates rotated, Hermes got picky and refused to accept the new ones unless you performed a quiet dance. A, then C, then back to A, then B in a window barely wider than a breath. I had discovered it during the first rollout. I had done the dance every year since. It's all in the docs, I lied, closing the box. Standard flow. We didn't see it, he pressed. Then I guess the transition team will earn their fresh perspective. I carried my box through a corridor of turned faces. The fluorescent buzz sounded like applause in a bad dream. Outside, the air was clean and mean, and the truth settled over me with the weight of something metallic. They hadn't fired a cog. They'd severed the nerve. In 2 weeks, when the annual security protocol update hit, I was the only person alive who knew how to keep Hermes from choking on it. If you're feeling that slow burn in your chest right now, same. Hit like if you're with Hazel so far. It really helps the channel find more viewers who love stories like this. 3 days later, I was at my kitchen table nudging verbs around on a resume I hadn't touched since Obama's first term when my phone lit up. Vanguard Systems. Hazel? It's Kevin. Loyal, brilliant Kevin. The kid I'd taught to trace bugs like they were footprints in fresh snow. His voice was thinned by lack of sleep. I'm not supposed to call, but the Hermes authentication tests are failing. We can't figure out why. I could see it. The open plan floor gone silent, Garrett pacing, someone refreshing logs like a rosary. Part of me wanted to let the silence answer for me, to let the building of fresh perspectives meet the cliff it had paved. But Kevin had always done his best. Clients were real people. Outages hit them like storms. Try line 1457, I said finally. There's a legacy verification check that needs to nap for 3 minutes before the cert update, then wake up again. A pause. Keyboard clatter, then a gasp. It's not documented. Wait, I see it. Hazel, good luck, I said and ended the call. Over the next week, my phone became a lighthouse. Short, careful answers, the minimum necessary to keep ships off rocks, and more proof that Hermes was embroidered with my quiet fixes. The calls escalated in title. Eventually, the name on my screen was the one that sent the 7:13 a.m. text. Hazel, it's Alexander, he said. Voice sanded down to polite panic. We're having technical difficulties with Hermes. The team believes you might expedite a solution. I don't work for Vanguard, I said evenly. You said I was replaceable. We'd like to retain you as a consultant, he pushed. Generous day rate. Immediate start. A dozen revenge fantasies blinked awake like fireflies. I could say no. I could watch the machine that dismissed me grind its gears to dust. But leverage is sweetest when you know how to use it. I'm available after hours only, I said. I've accepted another position. A story for now. A possibility tomorrow. 2-week minimum. $2,500 per day. Done, he said too fast. The air between us shifted again, from contempt to dependence in 9 syllables. I hung up and stared at the river mist. In less than a week, the same man who'd called me outdated needed me to hold his company together with knowledge he never thought to value. I hadn't sabotaged a thing. I had simply left a comment below. What would you have texted back to Alexander? Keep it classy. Or don't. I'm not judging. By sundown, I'd submitted a real application to Atlantic Data Services for the job I pretended I already had. Their recruiter called before the kettle boiled. We talked about legacy systems and practical genius and why experience is not a sign-on. Silence, the kind that rearranges outcomes. Hazel, James says at last, if you still have that January email, please forward it to the board office. I already did, I answer. Time-stamped. I leave the call before anyone remembers how to speak. If this moment punched you in the gut, hit like. It helps this story reach more folks who've been thanked for their service and shown the door. 5 minutes later, my phone rattles across the desk. Garrett, then James, then, unexpectedly, Robert Patterson. Hazel, Robert says, voice threaded with regret. The board's called an emergency session. Alexander's leadership is on the table. Your perspective on Hermes would be decisive, power. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that sits in truth and waits. I hang up and dive back into code because while boards posture and vote, certificates don't care. The damage from those earlier fixes runs deeper than I'd realized. To stabilize Hermes, I have to rebuild the authentication path and write a guardrail so this never happens again. It's not heroism. It's architecture done right. Night 1. I map the failure points and cut out the bad graft. Night 2. I stitch a robust update protocol that handles the cert rotation without the annual dance. I write documentation any smart engineer could follow on 2 hours sleep. It's the system we should have had all along. On the morning of day 3, with tests passing clean, Alexander calls. His voice has lost its polish. Hazel, we need to talk. The board votes tomorrow. Before they do, I'm offering your position back. Substantial raise, seat at leadership. There it is. The betrayal disguised as a bridge. Not an apology. Not respect. A transaction to keep his chair. I've already accepted a role elsewhere, I say. Whatever they offered, I'll double it. Don't let one misunderstanding destroy what we've built. One misunderstanding, I repeat softly. You fired me by text at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday. You called me replaceable and outdated. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a mirror? He exhales, a sound like a tire going flat. I made a mistake. I underestimated your contribution. We can fix this. Fresh start. I'm not interested in a fresh start with Vanguard, I say. Hermes is stabilized. I'll send Garrett the full update runbook today. A long pause. Is there anything I can say to change your mind? Yes, I say, and let the silence stretch. You can say thank you. For 20 years of nights and weekends. For the fixes that saved launches. For the innovations you never put on a slide. And you can admit that experience and fresh perspective aren't enemies. For a moment, all I hear is the river outside my window. Then, thank you, Hazel, he says quietly. For everything. You're welcome, I answer. The board meets at 10 tomorrow, right? Yes. Then I'll tell them exactly what happened. Not to punish you, so they understand the cost of ignoring the people who hold the map. This is the turn. Not sabotage. Not surrender. A boundary drawn with receipts. Comment below. In Hazel's shoes, would you take the offer and run the place, or walk, like she did? The board convenes at 10 a.m. sharp. I'm not in the room, but my presence is anyway. My January email glowing on their screens. My testimony requested. My fixes running clean in Hermes' test bed. Alexander's fate is no longer in his hands. By mid-afternoon, whispers turn into phone calls. The board has lost confidence. Robert Patterson, the father who once hired me in a drafty warehouse, steps in as interim CEO. The Hermes crisis, the mishandling of veteran staff, the reckless modernization campaign, it all points in one direction. Alexander is finished, and me? 2 weeks later, I'm standing in a new office at Atlantic Data Services, sunlight bouncing off the Willamette River. My team here is a mix of fresh grads and gray hairs like me, and for the first time in years, the balance feels right. They don't call me outdated. They call me experienced. My very first assignment? Designing a knowledge transfer system so no company ever depends on invisible fixes again. Irony, sweet and sharp. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire and brimstone. It's building something better. Then a call from Garrett. "Just so you know," he says, "Robert's implementing a new policy. Every senior employee who leaves now gets 30 days for transition and full documentation." He's calling it the Winters Protocol. "After you, I can't help it," I laugh. A soft, incredulous sound. After all those years of being invisible, my name is now a safeguard written into corporate policy. 3 months later, an envelope arrives. Vanguard's 25th anniversary. Inside, a handwritten note from Robert. "Hazel, I hope you'll join us to celebrate the history you helped create. The new CEO wants to meet the woman whose knowledge both challenged and ultimately saved this company." I do go. Not to gloat, not to lock eyes with Alexander as he exits through the back door, but to stand in the company's timeline and know my part mattered. The revenge was never about watching them burn. It was about proving, to them, to Jenna, and maybe most of all to myself, that my worth was never up for debate. That 7:13 a.m. text? The one that called me replaceable? It turned out to be a gift. It shoved me out of a place that had stopped valuing me and into one that did. At 59, I wasn't outdated. I was in demand, and that's the real victory. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't destruction. It's thriving so brightly that the people who dismissed you can't ignore the shadow you cast. If you enjoyed Hazel's story, give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, if you were Hazel, would you have taken Alexander's offer to return? Or walked away like she did?